Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm recording. So I sent you the comparative statics result, and yesterday I sent you the audio notes too. So did you get any time to check the comparative static results? Anybody? Got some idea about what is the meaning of comparative static?
No.
So first of all, could you complete the economic applications?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So now it's fine. All the
Yes, ma'am.
Cournot duopoly, price discrimination, everything is fine to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So further jodi aru karu kishu query thake, please send me the mail, or you can also call me. And you have to practice several other exercises from any textbook, any available microbook. So that will be fine. So today we are going to discuss the comparative static results. This comparative static result is actually we can get after optimizing the objective function. So the starting point is the optimized objective function. So either it will be a maximum value function or it will be a minimum value function. Now, whenever you are deriving the optimum value function, be it a maximum or minimum, this will be the function of parameters of the model. In the beginning, when you are starting, the objective function is the function of variables. Now, finally, when you are deriving the values of the variables, then the values are coming in terms of the parameters of the model. So let's suppose we consider the profit function. So profit to begin with may be function of two inputs, x1 and x2. So optimizing the profit function, you can finally get x1 star and x2 star. Now these x1 star and x2 star, which are the optimum values of the inputs, say L and K, these will be functions of prices of inputs, say W1, W2, and the price of output, which is say P. So this is our starting point. We have optimized our objective function, and then we are getting the value function. This value function is a function of parameters of the model. Now, we will like to understand what will be the measure of any parametric shift. That is, if I change W1, how the input demand function will change. If I change W2, how input demand for L as well as input demand for K, that will change. Or if I change the output price, how X1 star, X2 star, that is the input demands, may change. So all these kind of exercises are coming under the periphery of comparative static results. More specifically, when we are considering the parametric shift, not the change in variable, but the change in parameter, then we are getting all comparative static results. Just a minute. So to understand the things more clearly, again, we are considering the profit function. Actually, we are doing a chapter where we are considering unconstrained optimization. Among all possible unconstrained optimization, profit maximization is the most popular exercise. You will find that under most of the economic applications, we went for profit maximization. Only in case of Cournot duopoly, the exercise is a bit different, though there is basically profit maximization, but we could derive the reaction curves, etc., because that is a strategic behavior. Apart from the Cournot duopoly, if you go through rest of the exercises, be it multi-plant monopolies, be it multi-product perfectly competitive firm, or multi-product monopolist, or if you consider discriminating monopolies, for under all the circumstances, if you can remember, we are considering the profit function, because the profit function is the most important economic application under the unconstrained optimization exercises. So once again, we are considering the profit function. Now here, the profit function we are considering in terms of the inputs, say L and K. L is equivalent to X1 here, K is equivalent to X2 here. Now the profit function is basically revenue minus the cost. Revenue is price into quantity. So in the profit function, we are considering P, which is multiplied by the quantity, F, which is a function of X1, X2, and then we are subtracting the cost function, which is W1, X1 plus W2, X2. And then we are considering the usual first order conditions, del pi by del X1. Naturally, it is becoming Pf1 minus W1 is equal to 0, and pi 2, which is del pi by del X2, that is Pf2 minus W2 is equal to 0. And by this time, you are quite aware of the sufficient conditions which we need for maximization. Principal minus, we are considering the principal minus. First, we will consider pi 1, 1, pi 2, 2, etc. This should be negative. And then the second order derivative, pi 1, 1, pi 2, 2 minus pi 1, 2 square, that will be greater than 0. So we are considering H, that is the Hessian determinants. We are considering principal minors of the Hessian determinant. Do you have any question still now? Any
Here
question?
we are considering a perfectly competitive firm, right?
No, not necessarily. This P is, I didn't mention that P is constant. This P in general is a function of output. So if P is constant, then only it will be considered as a perfectly competitive firm. If it is a general case, that is P is a function of output, in that case, it is a monopoly, So imperfect competition actually, okay? So I didn't specify anything. Therefore, you can consider this as a general functional format. Anything else? So far it is fine, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, I'm giving you a general context. Pi ij. Pi ij means pi 1, 2, pi 2, 1. If I is equal to j, in that case, it will be pi 1, 1 or pi 2, 2. So when we are taking the derivatives, pi ij, the standard functional form is p fij. If I is equal to j, then we are getting f11, f22, this kind of expressions. And if I not equal to j, in that case, we are getting f12, f22. So the conditions which I mentioned in the earlier slide, pi 11, pi 22, and this expression pi 11 into pi 22 minus pi 12 whole square, these can be presented in terms of this general format. F11 is equivalent to pi 11, F22 is equivalent to pi 22, and F12, that is equivalent to pi 12. So this is the general format for profit maximization exercise. And if we consider this general format, under this format, the first order conditions can be written as P F1 X1 X2 minus W1 is equal to 0, and P F2 X1 X2 minus W2 is equal to 0. So let's go back to the expression del pi by del X1. Actually, we are considering in the next slide, as well as we are considering del pi by del X2. Del pi by del X1, that was P F1 minus W1 is equal to 0. So we are considering the same expression. And similarly, del pi by del X2, that was P F2 minus W2 is equal to 0. In the general formulation, we are using the same expression, P F2 minus W2 is equal to 0. Just I'm putting more information that F1 and F2, these two first order derivatives are functions of inputs x1 and x2, or the function of inputs L and K. Now, if we solve these two first order conditions, if I solve these two first order conditions, we will get the optimum values of x1 star and x2 star, because in this profit function, x1 and x2 are variable. So we solve the entire exercise first to get x1 star and x2 star. Once we get x1 star and x2 star, we get pi star. So actually, solving these two first order conditions, we will get optimum values of x1 star and x2 star. These optimum values will be functions of W1, W2, P. This part you have completed in the earlier context when we discussed the economic applications. That is, we are considering an objective function. We are marking this objective function is a function of this variable. Sometimes we are making it a function of output. Sometimes we are making it function of input. If we consider it is a function of output, in that case, we are finding Q star, then plugging the Q star in the profit function to get pi star. If we consider the thing other way around, not the function of output, but the function of inputs, in that case, we are finding the optimum values of L star and K star. So this part actually you did in the earlier context when you derived the values of either Q star or you derived the values of L star, K star. So here we are not doing that part because this part is already done. How to solve the first order conditions, how to check the second order condition, etc. So directly we are coming to the conclusion the x1 and x2 which we will get out of the first order conditions will be functions of parameters or the constants of the model. Here, the constants are prices of inputs, which we are marking by W1 and W2, and the price of output, which we are marking by P. So once we do so, we can say these are nothing but factor demand functions. X1 and X2 are nothing but factor demand functions. These two factor demand functions, or considering the factor demand function at their optimum, we can rewrite the first order conditions in this format. So what I am telling you, I'm considering the factor demand at its optimum. And then we are plugging these X1 star and X2 star in the first order condition. Therefore, we are using the equivalent sign, not the equal to sign. So again, I'm writing the first order condition, P F1 as a function of X1, X2, but instead of X1 and X2, we are considering the particular value function X1 star and X2 star, which are functions of W1, W2, and P. And there was minus W1 there in the first order condition. Similarly, we are considering the second first order condition, P F2, which is a function of X1 star, X2 star, which in turn are functions of W1, W2, and P minus W2, which is equivalent to 0. So same first order conditions I am considering, but we are considering these first order conditions at optimum. Any question? Any question? So it's fine?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So once you understand this position, basically, this is our starting point to derive the comparative statics. That is, we are considering first order conditions at their optimum. Then what we are doing, we are taking the derivative of these optimum functions with respect to W1, say first. Then we will take the derivative with respect to W2 Then we will take derivative with respect to P. So actually our objective is to find out what is happening to our input demand function if price of input changes, or what we will have for our input demand function if the price of related input changes, or finally what will be the change in our input demand function if the output price changes. So we want to find out basically del x1 star by del w1, del x1 star by del w2, and del x1 star by del p. The similar thing we will like to do for x2 star. That is, we will again derive 3 derivatives for x2 star. So we will do these exercises one by one. So let's first consider changes for x1 star only. So we will take derivative with respect to w1 first, then we will take derivative with respect to w2. So we are considering the first order condition, 2 first order conditions, and are we getting this expression with respect to the first order condition if we take derivative with respect to w1? So this is the expression P f1, which is a function of x1 star, x2 star. Both x1 star and x2 star are function of w1, and there is an additional minus w1. So we are taking derivative P f1. f1 is a function of x1 star, x2 star. Both x1 star and x2 star are function of w1, and then there is an additional w1. So if we take the derivative P del f1 by del x1 into del x1 star by del w1 plus P del f1 by del x2, because f1 is a function of both x1 star and x2 star, and both x1 star and x2 star are functions of w1. So we need to take the derivative with respect to x2 star too, because x2 star is also a function of w1. So applying the chain rule, we are getting also the second term, P del f1 by del x2 star by del w1. Then there was this w1. So when we are taking derivative with respect to w1, we are getting minus 1 out of this. So this is the expression. Next, we are considering this second condition, the second first order condition, Pf2. Now, F2 is again a function of x1 star, x2 star, and x1 star and x2 star both are function of w1, w2. So we are taking P del F2 del x1 star by del w1 plus P del F2 del x2 star by del w1. And here there is w2. So if you take derivative with respect to w1, naturally this will be equal to 0. So we are getting 2 terms out of the second first order conditions. So if we use, the notation f11 for the second level derivative of f1, f1 was basically del f by del x1. And if I take derivative of f1 with respect to x1, we are calling it f11. And if I take derivative of f1 with respect to x2, we are calling it f12. If I take derivative of f2 with respect to x1, we are getting f21. And if we take derivative of f2 with respect to x2, we are getting f22. So simplifying the notational matter, we can rewrite these 2 equations in this format. P f11 del x1 star by del w1 plus P f12 del x2 star by del w1 equivalent to 1. So I'm bringing 1 to the right hand side, because our objective is to find out del x1 star by del w1 and del x2 star by del w1. So once we get these 2 equations, simultaneously solving these 2 equations, we will be able to get del x1 star by del w1 and del x2 star by del w1. Okay, so we are considering the change in x1 star with respect to change in its own price, and change in x2 star with respect to change in price of x1 star. So these two values we will get if we solve simultaneously these two equations. You can use Cramé's rule or you can solve anyway. So here I am telling you multiplying the first equation by F22 and second equation by F12 and simultaneously solving the equations, we are getting this format. So if you do it on your own, simultaneously solve the matter, you will get this expression. P into F11 F22 minus F12 squared del x1 star by del w1 is equal to F22. Now if you do this thing, finally you can write del x1 star by del w1 is equal to F22 by P F11 F22 minus F12 squared. Now, if you can remember, it is the profit maximizing exercise and the second order sufficient conditions ensure this F22 that should be negative and this F11 F22 minus F12 squared that should be positive. So if the numerator is negative and the term in the denominator is positive, P is always positive because it is the price of the commodity. So this entire thing will be negative. So if we think about the input demand function, that is the demand function for say labor, that is a negatively sloped curve. If we consider price along vertical axis, and quantity, that is x1 star along the horizontal axis, in that case, we will get an inverse labor demand function. This is given by this del x1 star by del w1. Following the same rule, you will be able to find out del x2 star by del w1. Now, for del x2 star by del w1, you will be not able to state what will be the exact sign of this derivative or what will be the shape of x2 star with respect to change in w1. With respect to denominator, there is no problem, but in a general context, as long as you do not have any numerical value, you have no idea what will be the direction of F21. F21 can be negative, F21 can be positive. If F21 is negative, in that case, it will be a positive function. And alternatively, if F21 is positive, in that case, it is a negative function. So we cannot say specifically anything about the sign of del x2 star by del w1, whereas for x1 star, we can state unambiguously the curve will be negatively sloped. So this is the objective of the comparative static. Starting from the maximum value function, we are plugging the value function in the first order conditions. Then we are taking the derivative of all first order conditions with respect to a single parameter at a time. Here, we are taking derivative of all first order conditions at optimum with respect to W1. And from there, we are getting del X1 star by del W1 and del X2 star by del W1. We can repeat this exercise for del x1 star del w2 and del x2 star by del w2, and finally del x1 star by del p and del x2 star by del p. So if you understand the first format, it will be very easy to understand the second and third comparative exercises. So first tell me if you have any query, any question regarding these exercise, this first exercise. Any question?
Ma'am, I had a question about the cross derivative. Ma'am, so the
Yes.
sign of F21 can be either positive or negative. We can't say with certainty.
Yes. At this moment, we
Right.
cannot say, but if it is a numerical exercise, we will be able to get all the signs. We will be able to state, whether it is a substitute or whether it is a complementary, you will be able to state that. Looking at the sign of
Right.
del x2 star by del w1, by this time, what will be the sign for the substitute, what will be the sign for complementary. So if two inputs are substitutes, you will get the sign accordingly. If the two inputs are complementary, you will get the sign accordingly. So for numerical exercise, you will be able to tell us definitely whether the inputs are substitutes, whether the inputs are complementary, Or if the value is absolutely equal to 0, that is also possible. If f21 is equal to 0, the value can be equal to 0. In that case, there is no
There is no
relation
change.
between, there is no relation between the two inputs. They are neither substitutes nor complementary. Like commodity demand, okay? So like commodity demand cases, if you consider the cross price, it can be substitute, it can be complementary. There may be no relation between the commodities. So similar kind of thing here we are doing for the inputs.
Right.
Any other question? So it is fine to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if it is fine to all of you, we can move for the second exercise. So we are doing the same thing. We are considering the first of the conditions at optimum. That is, we have these equations, these two equations. These two equations are very important to derive all comparative statics. That is the first of the conditions at its optimum. So we have the starting point. Now we will take derivative with respect to W2. So if you look at the first of the conditions, here in the first expression, we will get two elements. If I take derivative with respect to W2, we will get one expression from x1 star, another expression from x2 star, and then there is 0, so we will get two terms. And if we consider the second first order condition, in that case, we will get three derivatives, you know. So we will get -1, 2, because there is one minus W2. So if we take derivative with respect to W2, here we will get three terms. The third term will be -1. Okay, so doing the same thing. First, we are taking the derivative with respect to W2. So P F11 del X1 star by del W2 plus P F12 del X2 star by del W2. Then P F21 del X1 star by del W2. P F22 del X2 star by del W2. And as I mentioned, in the second equation, there will be one -1. So that -1 we can put in the right-hand side. So it is equivalent to 1. Now, once we get these two expressions, we can simultaneously again solve these two exercises or simultaneously solve these two equations to get the value for del X1 star by del W2 and del X2 star by del W2. This del X2 star by del W2, this is F11, which is negative. In the denominator, P is positive, and the second expression is positive. So unambiguously, we can state that this will be negative. However, as long as we do not have any idea about the sign of F12, we will be not able to understand what will be the exact sign of del X1 star by del W2. It can be positive, it can be negative. In fact, if F12 is equal to 0, in that case, it will be absolutely equal to 0. So the same thing we are doing here. The starting point is change in W2. In the last exercise, the starting point was change in W1, and here the starting point is change in W2. Finally, we are considering the third possibility. That is, we will take derivative with respect to P. Now, in the beginning, somebody asked me the question whether we are considering it is as a perfectly competitive context. Yes, the student was right, because, you know, I am not considering P to be function of these inputs. Anyway, we are not considering this. Though in reality, there is a chance that output price will depend on input prices, But here, we are not considering that kind of context, okay? So P, we are not considering is a function of the input or input prices. We are not considering P is a function of, again, W1, W2. So we are not considering this thing. So P is externally given to the factor market. So here we are considering that kind of context. Okay, so so simply I'm taking the derivative del F1 by del X1, which is F11, into del X1 star by del P. So same chain rule I'm using, plus P del F1 by del X2, then del X2 star by del P, and there is one F1. So let me go back and check why we are getting this F1. Okay, so there is P into F1, this kind of thing. Okay, P into F1. Therefore, I mentioned that thing. Just some student asked me the question, and here really, we are not considering P to be a function of W1, W2. So we are not considering P to be function of X1 star, X2 star even. So we are not considering the thing in that way. So if we take derivative from this expression, you know, first we are considering P to be constant, then we are taking derivative of F1 with respect to P. So we got F11 into del X1 star by del P, and then P F12 del X2 star by del P. Finally, we are considering this A part to be, you know, constant and taking the derivative with respect to P. So we are getting this F1. We are getting this F1. Okay, plus F1. This is U into V. So there is one plus F1 in the left hand side, which we are bringing to the right hand side. Therefore, we are writing minus F1. The similar thing is happening for the second equation. There was also the revenue function, which is price into quantity. So we have the P. So when we are fixing V, that is F1 or F2, we are getting this expression. You know, F1 and F2 we are getting back from this expression. We are getting F1 or F2 when we are taking derivative with respect to P. So first we are considering P to be constant and getting two derivatives. When we are taking derivative of X1 star with respect to P and X2 star with respect to P, here also F2 with respect to P, and then we are getting the derivative with respect to P for X2 star, and finally we are taking derivative with respect to P, and then we are getting back F1 in the first expression and F2 in the second expression. So we have one plus F1 here and one plus F2 here when we are taking the derivative. So that we are bringing in the right hand side. So we are getting minus F1 and minus F2. Any question?
Ma'am, so this is basically product rule, simply.
Product rule, chain rule, yes. Huh?
Yeah.
Product rule, U
Chain
into
rule.
V. Chain rule and product
Yeah.
rule. For the
Yeah.
P, along with the chain rule, we have also the product rule, U into V. P
Yeah.
into F1, P into F1. So P is U, F1 is V. In the second
Right.
expression, P F2. So P is U, F2 is V.
It's V.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first we are keeping P fixed and taking the derivative of F1 with respect to P, and
P.
then in the second expression with respect to P, and the second term we are fixing then F1 or F2, and then we are taking derivative with respect to P. So we are getting back
Right.
F1 and F2. So it is U into V.
Right. Yeah.
Anyone else? Any question? Is it okay to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, Orko is there. Orko, Rajdeep, Bighi, Ananya.
Yes, ma'am.
So the things are fine to all of you?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Very good. So, you know, as you understand these two equations, naturally, we have to find out del x1 star by del p, del x2 star by del p. So simultaneously solving these two equations, we will like to find out what is happening to input demand if output price changes. What is happening to x1 star or x2 star? That is the optimum input demand if commodity price changes. Now here, again, it is difficult to tell something about the numerator, sign of the numerator. Denominator is fine. Denominator is fine. Denominator we are getting to be absolutely positive. But we have no idea about the numerator. So, you know, del x1 star by del p may be positive, del x2 star by del p may be positive, you know. So all possible things are there. So depending on your numerical exercise, you will get whether the sign is positive or negative. Generally, it is, you know, if input price increases, okay? So you can take note of the fact, you know, if input price, if commodity price increases, P is the price of the commodity. So if commodity price increases, it is rational that the producer will sell more of the commodity. Producer will sell more of the concerned commodity. Now, if the producer sells more of the concerned commodity, in that case, there will be an increase in input demand. So it is difficult to get any context where both del x1 star by del p and del x2 star by del p will be negative. It is more likely that both the expressions will be positive, but it is possible that one of the input demand is increasing rapidly when the supply of the commodity is increasing. Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. হ্যাঁ ওরা দেখতে পাচ্ছে শেয়ার দেখতে পাচ্ছ তো স্লাইডটা
Yes, ma'am.
anyone had some question?
Ma'am, f of x1 x2 টা output function? Ma'am?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বলো আরেকবার বলো
F
of x1
f of
x2 is the
x1
output
x2.
function. Yes. দেখো
আচ্ছা।
this is present in the profit function. So profit is equal to revenue minus cost. So revenue is price into quantity. So f of x1 x2 is nothing but q. Q in terms of two inputs x1 x2. So it is q. It is the output function. Anything else? So we stopped here. We derived del x1 star by del p. And this will be your homework to derive all del x2 star. This entire exercise in terms of x2 star you can do. So next we are moving to the supply function. That is, we are going to the output. That is our F. Somebody asked the question whether F is the output function or not. So from this slide, I hope you are understanding, definitely F is the output function. So we are considering output to be Y. Y is a function of two inputs, X1 and X2. So as I mentioned, this entire analysis is the comparative static result. So our starting point will be the value function. So we will start from Y star. Y star is equal to f of x1 star, x2 star. This x1 star and x2 star are functions of W1, W2, and P. So the same kind of thing we are using, just instead of considering x1 star, x2 star as such, we are considering Y star, which is a function of x1 star, x2 star. So if we put these value functions with parameters, Y star is becoming Y star as a function of W1, W2, W1, W2, and P. So this is the required supply function of the firm. Although the supply function is commonly drawn against the output price P, factor prices must also enter the function, since factor costs obviously affect the level of output a firm will choose to produce. I hope you are understanding the meaning of this sentence. So far, in general, we talked about the supply function under perfect competition. We consider supply to be a function of price, and we consider a positively sloped supply function on the basis of that idea. Now, here, not only we are considering P as the parameter while we are defining the output supply function, but also we are bringing input prices too. The objective or the logic is factor prices, will determine what will be your commodity price. Because if you consider the perfect competition, P is equal to MC. So price is determined by the marginal costs of production. So definitely factor costs or factor prices have crucial role to determine what will be the supply function. So we are explicitly bringing W1 and W2 along with P in the supply function. This supply is the commodity supply. Any question?
Ma'am, I had a question about that previous slide. Ma'am, you told us to derive something like del x2. I'm not sure. Ma'am, could you repeat the question you gave as homework?
Okay, so at the end, we will discuss it.
Yeah, sure.
Any question regarding the structure of the commodity supply function? This is the commodity supply function. So if required, please note down, this is the commodity supply function. Y is the commodity supply. It is equivalent to Q. It is the commodity output. So to understand the idea of parametric shift, we consider change in P, change in W1, change in W2. The most important exercise here, what will happen to the optimum output function if P changes, if the price of output changes? So here we are starting with del Y star by del P. In context of input, the most important factor is input price. Therefore, we started the derivative from W1, then W2, then we came to P. Here, the priority is for P. So we are considering the derivative with respect to P. Actually, we want to check what will be the change in the commodity supply if output price changes. What will be the change to the optimum commodity supply, not the general commodity supply? What will be the change in the equilibrium value when P changes? Comparative static always tells us what will be the parametric shift at equilibrium. So if I consider del Y star by del P, if we look at the expression, P is a function of x1 star, which is a function of P, x2 star, which is a function of P, So we will get the derivative as using the chain rule, del f by del x1 star by del p plus del f by del x2 into del x2 star by del p. So we are getting this. And then the notational matter, del f by del x1, we are considering f1. Del f by del x2, we are considering by f2. So del y star by del p is equivalent to f1 del x1 star by del p plus f2 del x2 star by del p. Now, if we substitute the values of del x1 star by del p and del x2 star by del p, which we got earlier when we took the derivative of x1 star with respect to p and x2 star with respect to p, we will get this expression. So let's go back to the exercises where we got del x1 star by del p and del x2 star by del p. So these are the two expressions, del x1 star by del p and del x2 star by del p. So you need to do this thing on your own. So we are putting those values here, del x1 star by del p and del x2 star by del p. If we do this, you know, the LCM is p into f11 f22 minus f12 square. Again, I am going back. This is the denominator, p f11 f22 minus f12 square. So this is the denominator, and try to remember the numerator is like this, minus f1 f22 plus f2 f12 minus f2 f11 plus f1 f12. So this is the structure. So all these elements are coming here. All these elements are coming here, and after a bit adjustment, we are getting minus f1 square f22 plus 2 f12 f1 into f2 minus f2 square f11. So this will be the numerator, and denominator, as you got, is the common denominator for all the exercises here, which is p into f11 f22 minus f12 square. Now, once we get this result, the question is, what will be the sign of this del y star by del p? For the denominator, you did it several times, and I hope you can understand it will be positive because p is positive, as well as the Hessian determinant. If it is a maximization exercise, in that case, if we consider the second order, it will be positive. Now, what about the numerator? Are you familiar with the numerator? Did you get this kind of expression earlier in the early semester?
I think for utility maximization, perhaps.
In context of utility maximization, very good. We use this kind of thing. Actually, this expression is related to the bordered Hessian determinant. Actually, here we have quasi-convexity, or we are capturing the idea of quasi-concavity, quasi-convexity. For the time being, please try to remember this expression, f11 f2 square, that is negative of the above expression, f11 f2 square minus 2 f12 f1 f2 plus f22 f1 square, that will be negative. This we will do in the next class when we will start talking about constraint optimization. The only difference between the unconstrained and constraint optimization with respect to the second order condition is that in case of constraint optimization, we incorporate the idea of quasi-concavity and quasi-convexity. As I do so, there will be some expressions with respect to F1 and F2. When we are considering the unconstrained exercises, in that case, we are getting only the second order derivatives. Whereas when we will go for bordered Hessian determinant, in context of constraint optimization, we will get F1 square, F2 square, etc. And there we will determine concavity by stating the condition F11, F2 square minus F12 into F1 into F2 plus F2 to F1 square less than 0. So just bear this equation today. We will do it in the next day. So if I consider this is the concavity requirement is this should be negative. That is the maximization requirement is this should be negative. In that case, you know, minus of this entire thing will be positive. So if both the numerator and the denominator are positive, in that case, del y star by del p, that will be positive. So we are getting the output supply function is positively sloped. Any question? This is okay? So actually both the
Yes,
numerator and the denominator, the signs of both the numerator and the denominator will be ultimately determined by the second order conditions. Second order conditions will ensure the positivity of this entire expression del y star by del p. So this is all about this thing. Now, as I mentioned, you can also derive del y star by del w1, and you can also derive del y star by del w2. So please write down the homework now. Please write down the homework now. Show that del y star by del w1 is equal to minus del x1 star by del p. Number 2, del y star by del w2 is equal to minus del x2 star by del p. I think everybody could write. So first of all, here there are two things. First of all, you need to derive del y star by del w1, like del y star by del p and del y star by del w2. These are two separate exercises, in fact. So like this expression, you can find out del y star by del w1 starting from this basic expression, and you can find out del y star by del w2. So this is one exercise. Combining this part with the other part, I'm giving you to solve or giving you to prove del y star by del w1 is equal to minus del x1 star by del p, and del y star by del w2 is equal to minus del x2 star by del p. Now, this kind of relationship, that is, if I take the derivative of output supply with respect to input prices and input demand with respect to output price, this is called the reciprocity relation. Reciprocity relation, where y star will be derivative of y star will be taken with respect to input prices, and derivatives of input demands will be taken with respect to output price. So if we construct this kind of structure, we call this relationship reciprocity relationship. Now the signs of these expressions are indeterminate as long as we are not solving any numerical exercises. It will depend, you know, you will get everything in terms of F1, F2, etc. as you complete these exercises, and you will find that actually it is difficult to state what will be the sign of these expressions as long as we are not getting any numerical exercises. Okay, so we are starting with the comparative statics. These comparative statics are starting with the value function. We are putting value function in the first order conditions, and then we are considering the change of these first order equations with respect to the parameters of the model. Once we consider these derivatives, we can solve for del x1 star by del w1, del x1 star by del w2, del x1 star by del p. Similarly, del x2 star by del w1, del x2 star by del w2, del x2 star by del p. Finally, we can find out del y star by del p, del y star by del w1, and del y star by del w2. In the earlier exercise, I told you if anything is incomplete in the slides, please complete those parts. So you will have 9 comparative statics altogether. 9 comparative statics altogether. I am repeating del x1 star by del w1, del x1 star by del w2, del x1 star by del p, 3. Then other 3, del x2 star by del w1, del x2 star by del w2, del x2 star by del p, 6, 3 plus 3. Finally, del y star by del w1, del y star by del w2, and the other one which we did, del y star by del p. So 3 plus 3 plus 3. All 9 exercises should be there in your copy. After that, we are coming to some reciprocity relationships. That is, we are making a cross. We are considering an equivalence between change in output with respect to input prices with change in input demand with respect to output price. So this is the last 2 exercises. So 9, then 10, 11. First you consider with respect to W1, then you will have X1 star here. Then you consider with respect to W2, then you will have X2 star here. So are you understanding what other exercises you should have with you?
Yes, ma'am.
কি বাকিরা বুঝতে পারছো?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So all these things I wanted to tell you. Next, I'll tell you something about the short run and the long run. More specifically, we will like to derive the short run supply curve of the firm and the long run supply curve of the firm. We are starting with the same profit function. Pi is equal to P into Q. In place of Q, we are considering F, which is a function of 2 inputs, X1 and X2. And then we are considering the cost part, W1 X1 plus W2 X2. Here, first, we are starting with the short run context. So do you know the difference between the short run and long run?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Pratyush, bolo, what is the difference between the short run and the long run? Is Pratyush there in the line? Roll number 3, 4, 5. Yes.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I was saying that in long run, all the inputs are considered to be a variable, whereas in short run, we consider that some inputs are assumed to be constant.
Very good.
Like,
Next. Yeah, you give the example. Yeah,
Like ma'am, in capital we consider that it's constant in short
generally
run.
we consider. If we consider the
Yes.
two inputs L and K, in that case, we consider
So
capital to be a constant in
capital
the
is
short
constant.
run, whereas
Yes,
both
ma'am.
labor and capital are variable in the long run. Okay, so
Yes, ma'am.
very good. So this is the context. In the short run, some of the factors of production are considered to be constant, whereas in the long run, all factors of production are variable. Now, these are the simplified model. We have only two inputs, X1 and X2. I mentioned X1 is equivalent to L and X2 is equivalent to K. So, to differentiate between the short run and the long run supply function, for the time being, we are considering X2 to be constant at X2 naught. So, we are rewriting the usual profit function as pi is equal to P into f of X1, X2 naught. X2 naught is the constant part, minus W1 X1 minus W2 X2 naught. So if you look at the cost function, this W1 X1 is the variable cost, whereas W2 X2 naught, that is the fixed cost because X2 naught is constant here. So the cost function consists of the fixed cost as well as the variable cost. So if this is the expression, in the next step, we will go for similar kind of exercises. So in the standard practice, to maximize profit, we will consider del pi by del x1. So this is pi 1, which is p f1, which is a function of x1, x2 naught minus w1 from the second term. Now there will be no del pi by del x2 as we are considering x2 to be fixed. So it is not the variable component or it is not the decision variable in the model. It is given. So we take the derivative only with respect to the decision variable, not with respect to the other variables. So if we follow that rule, we are considering this first order condition only. So the relevant second order condition will be del pi, del square pi by del x1 square. In other words, it is pi 1, 1, which is equivalent to pf11. Since it is the maximum, therefore, the second order condition should ensure this pf11 should be negative. So we have only one first order condition here in case of short run, and we have the relevant second order condition associated with this first order condition. So if we write the value function for the short run, we can write the value function as x1 is equal to x1 s for short run. That will be function of w1, p, and x2 naught. So instead of w2, x2 naught is coming in the analysis. Remember, instead of w2, x2 naught is coming in the analysis when we are talking about the optimum input demand for x1. So this is the difference between the short run and the long run. Actually, in the previous exercises, we considered both x1 and x2 to be variable. So the previous exercise can be considered as the long run exercise. So for the long run, this x1 will be x1 L, say, which we earlier named as x1 star. That will be function of W1, W2, and P. Whereas in the short run, this X1 is a function of W1, P, and X2 naught. Okay, so if this is the first order condition, we will put this function in the first order condition. Okay, so the first order condition was this, Pf1 minus W1 is equal to 0. So in this first order condition, we will put the value function. That is, we will put x1 star here. X1 star. This x1 star will be function of W1, P, and x2 naught. So we are plugging the value function in the first order condition. So we are getting this expression. So P F1 x1s, comma, x2 naught. x1s means actually you are considering w1, p, and x2 naught as parameters. Minus w1 is equal to 0. And then we will take derivative with respect to w1 as we did in the earlier case. We will take derivative with respect to w1, and here we can take the derivative with respect to p, but not with respect to w2. However, at this moment, we do not require all the expressions. So we are taking the derivative with respect to w1, which is feasible because w1 is there in x1s. So differentiating this identity with respect to w1, we are getting pf11 del x1s by del w1, that is equivalent to 1. Actually, there is minus 1 equal to 0. So that 1 we can bring in the right hand side. So if we rearrange the things little bit, del x1s by del w1, that is the change in input demand, optimum input demand with respect to W1 will be given by 1 by P F11. This F11 by the second order condition is less than 0. Therefore, this entire expression is less than 0. Thus, short run factor demand curve is also downward sloping. Previously, we got del X1 star by del W1. I'm going back. I'm going back to del X1 star by del W1. Del X1 star by del W1. This is the expression for del X1 star by del W1. Actually, this is the long run input demand. This is the slope of the long run input demand. So del X1 star by del W1. Now, we are getting del X1 S by del W1, which is simply given by 1 by PF11. However, both the curves are negatively sloped. Both the earlier one as well as this one are negatively sloped. Now the question is, though both the curves are negatively sloped, their slopes are not identical. So there is a difference between their slopes. We want to check which one will be steeper and which one will be flatter, whether the long run supply will be more elastic or whether the short run supply will be more elastic. That we want to check. For that matter, we are taking this difference, del X1L by del W1 minus del X1S by del W1. So if we consider the difference, it reduces to F12 square divided by P F11 into F11 F22 minus F12 square. Now, if you look at the expression, the numerator is always positive because it is a square term. In the denominator, F11 is negative by the second order condition, and the second expression, F11 F22 minus F12 square, that is positive. So, and P is always positive. So, the denominator is negative. Numerator is positive, denominator is negative. So, this difference is negative. So, long run minus short run is negative. Long run minus short run is negative. That means the absolute slope of the short run is greater than absolute slope of the long run. Please note down this fact. Please note down this fact. Since the difference between the values of long run slope and the short run slope of the input demands is negative, the absolute slope of the short run input demand, absolute slope of the short run input demand is greater than that of absolute slope of the long run input demand. In other words, mathematically, the short run input supply will be steeper than long run input supply. However,
repeat করুন ম্যাম। However,
mathematically, short run input supply, input demand, sorry, short run input demand will be steeper than long run input demand. Mathematically, short run input demand will be steeper than long run input demand. However, following the Marshallian principle, we measure input price W1, we measure input price W1 along the vertical axis and input demand along the horizontal axis. Input demand along the horizontal axis. Thus, we plot the inverse factor demand curves. We plot the inverse factor demand curves. Thus, graphically, the long run factor demand will be flatter than short run factor demand as shown in the given graph.